Paul. I've got their exact location. Northeast, 600 meters.
Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another game of interplanetary I Spy going on here. I'm also going to do a quick overview of some other things I found recently and how the press deal with these things and media censorship and that kind of issue as well. But first, we're going to have a look at this find, which I published a couple of days back now. And this is from PIA 19929. This is a high quality image from NASA, much better than we normally get. This is what makes this such an interesting find, because even though this object is, these objects are quite far away, probably about 2 miles away from the rover, the rover's actually zoomed in quite a long way, and we can see some really good detail. There, if you look up PIA 19929, you will find there is actually a scale map for this as well, which gives you sizes for some of this stuff, and it says this kind of structure here near the front of the image is about 100 feet long or something like, or actually no, I think it's something like 90 meters or 100 meters long. So this thing here is very long. It's hundreds of feet long, and the actual pyramid structure, or ziggurat as I've called it, is up here on the top right. And I'll let that play through a little bit. I'm not going to spend too long on this, because you can check the other video out. But I didn't do a talk over on that video. It's just a very quick 2 or 3 minute video. This is just a quick overview of it. It's called Mars Huge Pyramid Ziggurat, Tower of Babel, I think it's called. And when you see the enhancements, you can actually see that there's a large rectangular building to the right of it here. And this pyramidal type structure here has uprights and columns as well, and even arches. And there are lots and lots of other structures around it. But not all of them show up that brilliantly in this photograph, because the actual time of day it was taken means that the shadows are not that great. So you've really got to sort of add some contrast to the area to actually see. There's the raw clip of it. And if you look really carefully, even in the raw image, you can see steps up here on the side of this ziggurat. You can see uprights with columns and different levels. And there's a little square structure here and a very large rectangular structure here. There's another square structure next to it here. There's multiple structures around this area, and even here you can see upright rectangles, lots and lots of buildings basically. And this isn't all down to pixelation. Some of it is, some of the smaller stuff is, of course, but this is a high-res TIFF image. It's not a JPEG, so these are not JPEG artifacts. So anyone that says that they are is talking out of their rear on this one, because this is from a high quality image. It's not the usual standard of rubbish we get from JPL. This is good stuff. So you can actually determine with some accuracy what you're looking at here. And here's the basic enhancement. And now you can start to see some of these upright structures here coming out. And you can see these steps here. You may want to actually go and look at this video a bit more closely. I'll pause it there again. Now I've enhanced it a bit more. And all I've done here is enhance the contrast. And you can see clearly there are some rectangular structures here and different levels. I mean, it almost looks like scaffold here. It actually reminded me a bit of the Tower of Babel. It looks very similar to it actually. And is actually a similar size. Now, I estimate this thing from base to tip here at the top to be over 300 feet. I initially thought it was about 300 feet, but according to the measure guide that NASA have given out with this image, this is a lot bigger than that. This is over 500 feet tall. It could even be much taller. But I don't know exactly how far this thing away is from the rover. They do give some measurements in the image information and on the measure guide, but that is in the sort of middle to lower part of the image, and you can really only get a rough estimation of the scale of this building from that. So I estimate it now to be about 500 feet tall. The Ziggurat at Babylon, the ancient Tower of Babel, was 300 feet tall. This is much taller. It may be 6 or 7 or even 800 feet tall. It could even be 1,000 feet tall. But I'm going to sort of go around the 500 foot mark for now until better measurements can be made. It may well be much, much bigger. I'm not going to set that in stone, as it were, because I can't tell you exactly. There's a little bit more of an enhancement there. It's gone a bit darker. Now, in the negative image, you can really see how rectangular this structure is here. And you can see that little square structure there. And you can see the steps going all the way up the side of this here. And you can clearly see these upright structures, rectangles here, and different levels of building structures. And all around it, in fact, over here, there's square structures. Here, there's another building. There's another building here, as I showed you before. There's another structure here. There is a long structure here, which is rectangular and with a long flat roof to it, with what look like pillars. There's all sorts of stuff in here. But I didn't go too far enhancing this, because I don't want to be accused of drawing detail onto an image that isn't there. So I really kept this fairly basic, because then it's harder for people to dispute what's been found, because I really only have added a bit of light and shadow to it and sharpened it a bit here. And you can clearly see that these are intelligent structures. This is not just an eroded piece of rock. This is a huge ziggurat. And I will show you the comparative images coming up now. This is the Tower of Babel. This was painted by Bruegel the Elder, I think in the 17th century. One of my favourite pictures, in fact. And in fact, the band I used to be in, the Tower of Babylon, used this as our album cover, I think, our first album cover. Awesome image, absolutely awesome. And there are many theories about what the Tower of Babel was actually for. The word Babel itself means gateway to heaven or gateway to God. And there are some ancient images, in fact, from ancient Babylon showing the Tower of Babel with what looks like a rocket sticking out the top. So it may have actually been built as a launch pad for a spaceship to maybe fly back to Mars, for instance. Who knows? It's increasingly looking like the Martians actually did come to Earth in the distant past and perhaps colonized parts of Earth, like in Central and South America, and in the Middle East, like in Babylon and Egypt, and various parts of the world. There are many, many, many stories about this in ancient cultures and ancient scripts and religious writings. There are depictions of these gods all over the place in places like Iraq. Of course, many of these relief carvings and statues are now being destroyed by certain groups in that area, which I find absolutely abhorrent. And they are trying to erase our history here. But luckily, most of these things have been documented extensively by various people over the last 100 or 200 years, and there are many, many written records and photographs and film of these things. So we will never really completely lose them forever. We will always have records of these things, and these are very similar structures to what we're seeing on Mars. And on a similar scale, this is the Uxmal Pyramid, Mexico, I think. This one is, I think, in Egypt, I'm not sure. The Maiden Pyramid. This one is in Mexico. Pyramid of the Sun, absolutely enormous structure. And there are huge similarities between these things. But the scale of this one on Mars, I think, is much greater than anything we've seen on Earth so far. I don't know exactly how big it is, but I'm saying it's probably at least 500 feet tall. So that's pretty big. It could be much bigger. Of course, there is this structure which I did discover on Antarctica about 2 or 3 years ago, and I made this video about it. I don't know if any of you have seen this. It's called New Pyramid Found in Antarctica 2013, and I did some quite extensive searching on Google Earth of the Antarctic area, and I have read many books about Antarctica, and it's a very strange place because there are areas that are unfrozen, much like on Mars in Gale Crater. There are areas that have lots of geothermal activity, and there are large areas of the Antarctic which are unfrozen and have freshwater lakes and are habitable, and may well have been like this for a very, very long time. And it is possible in the distant past, perhaps, when the Antarctic continent was less frozen than it is now, it is possible that it was inhabited, and this may well be evidence of it. Now, I appreciate this isn't very clear because this is not a great quality image on Google Earth. This has been made out of satellite images which have been compressed down as JPEGs and downgraded to go on the actual Google Earth itself, so that it loads up quickly. But you can clearly see here a very large square structure which is largely buried in ice and snow, and even has probably a bit of cloud over it here. But you can clearly see a straight edge to it here, a straight edge here, and a straight edge here, and this edge is largely obscured, and there seems to be square structures inside it. Now, is this a pyramid? Possibly. Is it a square structure? Yes, it is. Now, the fact that this is so large, 2 kilometers exactly, when you measure it on Google Earth, dictates to me that it cannot possibly have been built by us. It may well have been. There may well have been an advanced culture before us that built it. What I mean is it was not built by us in recent times, in the last 500 years. This may have been built many, many thousands of years ago, and you can see when you align it to the actual grid that you get, the longitude and latitude, it fits perfectly into this grid pattern, and has a main latitude and longitude lines going right through the center of it. So it looks like some kind of massive structure that was built many thousands of years ago, perhaps when this part of the continent was unfrozen. It could have been 15, it could have been 20, it could have been 50,000 years ago. I don't know. But this is an example of a very, very large, what looks like a man-made structure on a continent that is never supposed to have been inhabited until recently, with a few expeditions and various scientific bases. So, are we being lied to about Antarctica as well as Mars? I think we are. Why is this? Yet, when you have this is from Ceres City Lights, Tower and Square Crater, this video is called, one I did fairly recently. Why are they not censoring images from Ceres? Is there a different parameter here about censorship? We're clearly censored when it comes to Antarctica and many of the sunken city structures that are found around the world, off the coast of India, Japan, in the middle of the Atlantic. There are also things near the Azores. There's a sunken pyramid near the Azores. I mean, you'll have to check this out, but there are basically structures all over the world that are hidden from us, and they have been censored for many, many years. And the powers that be, for some reason, really don't want us to actually see these things, and they don't want us to take these things seriously. They just don't want us to look into them in the first place. But for some reason, Ceres has been uncensored, and we've been getting some very good images of this what looks like a city on Ceres, as you can see here. Let's go forward a little bit there. I mean, this is clearly not just a natural structure. This showed up from many millions of miles away, and they're still claiming it's probably salt deposits or ice, but it clearly isn't. There are intelligent structures in here which are absolutely enormous. And you can see straight roads and bridges. You have to check this out a bit more closely to see them. I'm just doing a quick overview now. Let's flick forward a little bit there. Yes, as we can see here, there are large linear structures. A lot of it is down to pixelation, I appreciate that, but some of these are so large they cannot possibly be. These are long straight lines like roads and structures with bridges. There are lit up areas here. So I recommend that video. But what I think is happening here is something I've come up with a name for, and I've called it the 10-year rule. If it takes 10 years or more to get there in a rocket or in a space probe that's sent up by rocket initially and then launched into space, if it takes 10 years or more to get there, they're not going to censor it because it's far enough away for it not to be a threat, an immediate threat to us on Earth. And unfortunately, Antarctica is on Earth. The moon is not that far away, 240 odd million miles away. Mars, at its closest, is about 33 million miles away, and is too close for comfort. And I really do think that the reason why many of these things are being hidden from us or being censored, not necessarily by NASA, but by the people that control NASA, and also by the press. The reason for this is because these things are simply too close, and they don't have a viable explanation. And even if they did, they probably wouldn't reveal it, because basically, if they did, they would have to admit that they've been covering these things up for many, many decades now, at least since World War II. Many of these things have been withheld from the public in general, and the media have largely gone along with this. But occasionally, as happened about a week ago now, I sent this video into the press. I did this video called Mars Giant Mouse, which you may have seen. Now, it's probably not a giant mouse. It's probably just some rocks that looks like a mouse. But this is the very sort of thing that the press will publish, because it can easily be put down to perhaps pareidolia or seeing things that aren't necessarily there. But it does clearly look like a mouse. And you can see here that my video was uploaded on the 11th of November, and other videos were instantly copied from it, really. This one by Jason Hunter was uploaded the day after, on the 12th of November. You can see the date there. But what he did, he actually sent this to the press before I got a chance to. He must have sent it very early that morning to the press, and it got into the Daily Express. If you look at the news, let's look at the news contacts here. I got it into the Metro on the 13th. They got it into the Express. Him and Jason Hunter and Scott C. Waring from UFO Sightings Daily got it into the press. And strangely, he claims that Jason Hunter found it, which I find rather strange, even though I posted it a day before and lots of people saw it. So that is very odd to me. I don't know what's going on there, whether they're trying to hijack my stories. Who knows? Many people have done it before. I'm not saying I own the story, but he seemed to get it into the press before I even got up, so maybe I should have got up earlier that day. But I do tend to work late at night, so there we go. But this is a typical example of something that the press will publish because it's not as controversial as a huge ziggurat or pyramid, and basically it can be fairly easily dismissed as pareidolia. And here it is. There's the raw image. You can see it looks like a mouse with big ears. Now, Jason Hunter's rather stupidly, I think, said that this is 3 meters across. It's nowhere near that. It's probably something like 2 feet across. Possibly 3, but no bigger than that. I'll let that play through a little bit. Let's go to the enhanced version. There we go. And you can see I've done a real basic contrast enhancement there and white balanced it, that it looks like a mouse with a shiny nose and an eye and then maybe a mouth there and a possible tail, not really sure about that, and a body, and the ears are fairly defined. But this is a classic example of something the press will publish because they can easily dismiss it and just say, oh, that NASA put things like this down to pareidolia. And let's have a look at the Metro, what the Metro had to say about this. There we go, so let that load up. Now this actually did me quite well. I got sort of 150,000 hits on this just in like 2 or 3 days. So I'm not complaining about this at all, but what I am concerned about is the fact that people seem to hijack these stories and get them in the press and then claim they found them when other researchers have clearly already published them for everyone to see. So this is a concern. I mean, of course, when it comes to Mars images, of course, you don't own them. They belong to NASA and the American public who paid for them. So they are a bit of a free-for-all. But when it comes to publishing, it is general politeness and courtesy to actually credit the right people for finding things, as I always do. If I publish something that Rami Bar-Ilan has found, or something that Will from What's Up in the Skies first published, I will always have a link to their page and to the particular video in question and credit them in full and date the credit underneath the video, as I always do. And this is something that we do on this Facebook group, Mars Discoveries and Solar System Anomalies. We do share lots of information, we share lots of images. There's a cool one here that Billy Carson's put up with some what look like hieroglyphs on, which I think is really quite very interesting. And people are posting stuff on here all the time, and you know, if I take something from here that I didn't find and someone else did, I will fully credit that person and make sure that they get the credit where the credit is due. So that's just a quick overview of what's been going on recently in the press and how the press censor Mars information and other information about maybe Ceres or Antarctica or sunken cities or hidden pyramids, aliens, cities on planets billions of miles away. There does seem to be a different criteria when it comes to places like Mars and Ceres. Ceres has been very uncensored so far. We seem to be getting really, really good stuff from Ceres, and for some reason Mars it still comes under some kind of jurisdiction here that we're not aware of. That probably goes back to the Brookings report in 1959, I think it was, when the American military and the Brookings Institute decided to keep these things from the public to protect us. What, from the truth? Yes, probably. But there was this image which I thought was very interesting that came up just today, I think, this morning, of Ceres, and it shows here the polar regions of Ceres. Let me get my teeth in there, sorry. And I thought this was really cool. Basically, it shows here a large square black hole on the side. I think this is the south pole of Ceres. Now, I'm not saying this is a black hole, but it is very square, and a lot of this is in shadow. I appreciate that, and the sun probably doesn't get to that part of the planet, at least at not this time of year. So, but what struck me was the actual shape of it here. It does look square. Let me get into that a bit more. It looks square. Why is it square? Why on Earth would there be, or on Ceres would there be, a massive square structure like this? And what has caused it? Answers on the postcard with that one, guys. I may do a bit more on this. I may do an update on this and do another Ceres video soon. I've been gathering more data on the planet. I've got loads of stuff. There are lots of weird square craters on Ceres, which don't make any sense whatsoever. you will see in this video, Ceres City Lights video. If you go to near the end of the video, it will show you what looks like a square crater. Let's go forward. Is it gonna show it? There it is. Let's play that a minute. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, I mean, what the hell causes that on a planet? Are they going to tell us now that there are square meteors that are cube-shaped that crash into these planetary bodies? What possible explanation could there be for such a perfect square, rectilinear, right-angled crater? This is clearly an artificial structure. I mean, what else could it be? So there we go, folks. I think I'll call it a day there. You know, when it comes to censorship, we are not only censored by the press and perhaps NASA and JPL, but we're also censored by our friends. We're also censored by our family. We're censored by people in the pub when we were chatting to our friends who overhear you. And then, you know, often when I'm speaking to my friends, I actually have to censor myself because I know what I will say they may struggle with because they haven't done the research, and they may find it very difficult to comprehend a lot of these things on different planets, like pyramids and square structures everywhere. Wherever we seem to go in the solar system, there seem to be these massive square structures and pyramids and ziggurats and square craters that can't possibly be natural. So, you know, is this censorship everywhere? Yes, it is. And it seems like, unfortunately, the press will only publish things like the giant mouse that they can easily dismiss as pareidolia, which it may well be. Is this changing? Yes, I think it is. I think this is going to change. I've sent this particular find to all the press in the last few hours, well, this morning. Will any of them print it? Maybe. It only takes one major news outlet to print something like this, and it will get copied worldwide by lots and lots of websites and other outlets. So you only need one major organisation to get the story out there, and it will be duplicated many, many times and will go massively viral and become a big story. So there we go, folks. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you soon.